Hello and welcome, my friends. Today on this webinar, we're going to be talking about cracking the code, overcoming IT industry challenges. If you've made it to this landing page, you probably feel the same way that I do being a business owner in this day and time. And that's that the cybersecurity and the IT and technology landscape has really changed over the last handful of years. I mean, I get it. We all use technology to move our businesses forward. In fact, I would argue that in many ways, we just take technology for granted. I mean, think about what business was like 50 years ago or 100 years ago before the smartphone, the internet, email, and all the tools that we have to drive our business forward. But oddly, in that same way, it's also become sort of this necessary evil. And it comes with oftentimes a lot of convolution and confusion. And so sometimes when you're needing help or guidance, or if you're needing to staff somebody to help protect with IT resources and cybersecurity and all that, in many cases, it's really difficult to know who to trust. Who's there to help you, who's there to guide you, and who's there to take your money and run. Well, guys, my name again is Josh, and I've been in the small business community for almost 20 years. In fact, I work on the IT side of the house, and I spend a lot of my time helping businesses develop their business and operational intelligence. And so interesting, I've been on both sides of the house, meaning I've had to grow a company and take on the complexities of technology and the cloud and cybersecurity, probably like many of you, but also I've been on the other side and I've seen the struggles that businesses go through when trying to navigate that landscape. So today I want to take just a little bit of time to sort of educate you, but also to equip you. My goal today is to give you not just some good solid education about where you might be in your business and some of the things you may need to prioritize or to think about, but also to give you some tools and resources. If you've made it to this landing page, then you know there's some really good content here. So I'm going to encourage as we go along to make notes and listen and think about where you are in your company, but also don't miss the opportunity to engage with the resources on this landing page. So first, let's talk about really the big problem for businesses. And specifically what I mean here really is actually the big problem with IT guys. IT guys, IT gals, IT pros, IT people, they have the keys to the castle. And so let's think about for just a minute. If I'm a business owner, I'm trying to evaluate who can really help me, who should I put in place. I've got a couple of options. Obviously I can hire someone and I can put them on the payroll and ask them to show up to work 40 hours a week. I can outsource that option. I can put people on agreement, or I can buy time ad hoc. I can call them when there's a fire. Heck, for that matter, I can even try to do it myself. But the point is, when it comes to IT guys, IT people, they have the keys to the castle. Now, I want you really to think about this for a second. I mean, these people have access to everything. They have access to everyone's company email. They can see anything on the company payroll. They have access to all the intellectual property. They created the infrastructure, right? They installed all the hardware, the software, and they set it up. And they also control all the logins. Who has access to what? And not just that, guys. guys, IT folks are adept at conjuring job security out of thin air. They have this power to keep knowledge under lock and key. And think about it. Maybe you have an IT person, somebody you trust right now. What would happen if that person just vanished tomorrow? They got hit by a bus or they were just gone. Do you have access to all of their information? Do you have a handy little book with your network configurations and logins? Would you even know where to start if that person left tomorrow? Let's face it, IT guys, because they install, because they configure and manage everything, they know the people and the content on the network, and they know where all the little gremlins are there. Oftentimes they'll say, well, let me do that for you. Let me get you logged in, right? Think about the empowerment there that those people have. They can really, truly build a kind of a fortress of their own job security and shockingly, in a lot of ways, hold you hostage to the fact that they own this very critical part of what your business does. And here's a really frustrating thing. It's kind of the dirty little secret of IT guys. They struggle mightily, oftentimes saying, I don't know. And I don't know about you, but if you're not somebody who doesn't understand tech lingo, maybe you speak English and not geek, and if you've ever had a conversation with a really capable IT professional, it's really easy for them to kind of blast you with a flurry of acronyms, or if you ask a question, sometimes you don't get an answer that makes a whole lot of sense. And that could be a little bit scary, my friends, because if you think about it, these folks sometimes, in the absence of being able to answer questions or address challenges, they don't like to say I don't know. Typically these people and their personality, their disposition, they're not a big fan of being criticized. They take a sense of security in what they know and what they know how to do. And because that's the case, if you really think about these three things here, IT people can really hold us hostage. Whether they work in our business or outside of the business, they have a lot of power over us and our information and our infrastructure. And when we need help, sometimes that doesn't go as well as what we would like. So it's with that in mind. If you're somebody, maybe you're sitting there thinking, I landed on this page because I really want some help getting help. Let's think about a couple of ways. The first thing I want to talk about is auditing your IT professional. And I want to share that from the perspective of 7 non-negotiable things, regardless of how you go about getting IT help. Again, internal, external, or sometimes or all the time. 7 non-negotiable things that IT professional must have figured out, and that frankly you deserve if you're going to employ or pay them. The first one I want to talk about is scalability. I don't run into a whole lot of businesses that are trying to go backwards. Don't get me wrong, some businesses are very happy to coast and all of those things, but most business owners and businesses I talk to, they have an eye for the future. They're trying to get somewhere. Maybe they're trying to grow accounts, grow revenue, grow staff, grow territories. At any rate, growth tends to be one of the big drivers that pushes IT challenges forward. In this case, scalability. I mean, think of it like this. Do you want to invest in technology? Do you want to bring in IT professional help that you're immediately going to grow out of or grow into as you scale? And I'm here to tell you, this is one of the big drivers that creates challenges in the IT space, because as your business grows and scales, so too does the complexity of all that technology, and moving to the cloud and needs for cybersecurity. And there's lots of little things that move into it. And as you grow, so too does the complexity of managing and maintaining your data and your network. And so the first non-negotiable is, however you seek that help, whomever is serving you, they need to be able to scale as your company scales. Very important. Non-negotiable number 2, like it, love it, or hate it. It's 2024 and beyond. It wasn't all that long ago, guys. Cybersecurity wasn't a thing. It wasn't all that long ago that if you had a decent computer and you knew how to log into email, maybe purchase some antivirus software, you were off to the races. But my friends, I'm here to tell you that those days are long gone. Cybersecurity is driving everything for small businesses. You see in the news every single day, people getting their identity stolen, getting their accounts hacked. If you're watching this call, maybe that's even happened to you. You've had a bank account compromised, or a social security number identity theft stolen, or your email shut down, or your social media account locked out. I feel like this day and age, it happens every minute of every day. And so because that's the case, and frankly, by the way, guys, the reason that's the case is that our people are our biggest risk in our business. The cybersecurity landscape is such a profitable, widespread industry. Hackers are just making money hand over fist. And those numbers, by the way, the payouts are going up year over year over year. And because they cast such a wide net, they are pretty good at tricking the busy, distracted employee in our business. Maybe they've distracted you. So the reality is, guys, cybersecurity has to be a non-negotiable. It's not good enough anymore to be able to plug in hardware, plug in software, get on the internet, utilize passwords, and off you go. So that's something that as you're evaluating your IT support, it's got to be a box that's getting checked. Not just fixing broken things, not just installing new things, but truly protecting you from the bad people out there in the world trying to do bad things to you, your business, and your data. And likewise, and with that, is internet security. So if cybersecurity really has a lot more to do with the bad people out there trying to get in and do bad things to our businesses, internet security is also about the people, protecting the people inside the business and helping them not get into trouble. We're going to go into that in some detail here in just a minute. But protecting our humans and the systems that they sit at every day and the data that they interface with as they send emails out, or they log into websites, or they transact client data, you have to protect that. And I'm just going to tell you guys, security in all of its shapes and forms, first of all, comes in layers. You have to protect the human through empowerment and education. You have to protect the systems, the network, everything sort of under your roof. But you guys probably also know that we're living in a very mobile society. There's lots of things on the cloud. And so you also have to protect sort of your entire company and those folks when they leave from the outside world. And guys, internet security, cybersecurity, they kind of go hand in hand. The frustrating thing about security is that I always say that security in general is a behavior. It's not an event. And what I mean by that is there's never going to be a time where you just check a box and you're always secure forever and nobody ever hack you and no humans will ever make mistakes. That's never going to happen. Okay. It's something that you have to constantly be vigilant about. And if you really get right down to it, guys, it's about risk mitigation. There's really, when it comes to IT and cybersecurity, there's no such thing as risk elimination, only risk mitigation. How near to zero can we get the threat of bad people coming into our business or our honest, hardworking people getting into trouble utilizing the internet, utilizing their technology? Another non-negotiable here when you're evaluating who you're working with in terms of IT support is the response time. Now I've put here SLA, that service level agreement. That's a term if you happen to be outsourcing, but nobody on this webinar probably needs me to tell them time is money. Okay, when you are having challenges with technology, your business is down, your clients are not being served, you are losing money, if only in terms of lost payroll or opportunity costs. And so because that's the case, I don't know about you, but I don't like to sit around for hours into days into over the weekend, first thing Monday, a couple of days after that, when I'm in pain and when I need help. And so one of the non-negotiable items when you're sort of auditing your IT guy, gal, person, your IT support is are they going to be reactive, meaning when the fire's ablazing, are they going to come and running with that fire extinguisher? And if so, how quickly? But also on the proactive side, folks, there's a whole lot that goes into just preventative maintenance, proactive care, monitoring, keeping a weather eye on what's going on as our machines and people talk to the world around us. And so because that's the case, just ask yourself the question: have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't perhaps make payroll because your accounting software was down, or you couldn't produce a client report, or you couldn't fulfill an order for a customer because of lack of use of technology? How did that go? How did that client treat you? How did that customer go? How was the morale in the office, or potentially the hit to your reputation? It's really wild if you sit and think about, just in terms of getting help when you need help, how very important that is, and how costly that can be when you're not getting it. And so because that's the case, one of our non-negotiables here is having an excellent response time. Another non-negotiable, guys, I want to talk about data for a moment, and I've put a couple things there. Data storage, which also kind of comes with it both backup and disaster recovery. I know that's a mouthful on the slide deck there, but think about it in this context. Data only ever grows. Okay, you think about your business every day. You and your staff, your folks and coworkers, you don't come to the office and delete a bunch of files, right? You don't start the day by deleting or removing or getting rid of data. No, of course you don't. Every minute of every day, you're creating new data. You're making new Word documents or spreadsheets. You're downloading files onto your computer. You're entering new employee records or putting in quotes or estimates. And so the fact of the matter is, in your company, no matter what industry you're in, you are always creating more data. Okay. And so when we talk about data, and the other thing there too, you notice the little cloud I put there. It used to be that all of our files tended to live on one computer, one, external hard drive or a flash drive or something. It was right there in a roof. We could see it, touch it, hold it, take it home with us if we wanted. But you all on this call know that more and more we are so removed from the office. The modern office really includes all those cloud, the cloud, right? All those times we leave the office, we have data on our smartphones and emails. We have iPads and Android devices. Many of us have laptops. And if you really think about how connected you are in terms of how you get to files and data, it's all over the place these days. And so with that comes not only backup, all right, which is the obvious one. Everybody creates files and they of course want to keep that information. But disaster recovery is also an important caveat. So I want you to think about this. What would you do if you came into the office tomorrow and all of the important information that makes your company grow? I'm talking about financial records, intellectual property, your client database, marketing and sales strategies, past work, Think about all the data and files that you truly have that make your business go. What would you do if you came into the office tomorrow and all of that was gone, evaporated, disappeared mysteriously in the night? Well, as you think about that, I want to share with you that studies show for the typical small business, approximately 60% of those of companies, once they experience a significant enough breach and a significant data loss, they actually end up going out of business inside of 6 months. And that's staggering. And I mean, really think about that for a second. If you've lost all of that information, everything made your business go, how would you function? And so, disaster recovery, data storage, data backup, that's a non negotiable. We've got to have a plan for where does all that important information live? What are we doing to safeguard it and protect it? Oh, and by the way, in the event of a disaster, our server crashes, we can't get access to email, some sort of weather event, how can we continue to function as a company when bad things happen? And so, again, because that's the case, guys, 7 non-negotiables. One of those is your IT professional must have a plan for data storage for you to access wherever your employees are, a way to insulate you from loss, and a plan for what happens when the stuff hits the fan. All right. So what comes with that? Another non-negotiable is network reports and risk assessments, guys. In kind of thinking in the same lines, the data only ever grows, and also in line with scaling. As your company grows, you're also buying more assets. You're buying computers, you're buying laptops, you're installing servers. Maybe you have Wi-Fi or access control or security cameras. There's a lot of stuff that you're putting in, okay? And as you're using all that stuff, it's difficult sometimes to really know, where do I stand? What of my equipment is aging out? Do we have any risks anywhere? Okay, and that risk assessment there is an important point. If you don't have some kind of tool to help you take care of that inventory, what is in place? What are we using? But also to know, hey, do I have any information that's been leaked to the dark web as a result of a breach from somewhere else? Has a hacker gained access to my network, and do I not know it yet? Are there any open ports or back doors that would allow them to do so? And this one right here is really important, guys, because it takes sophisticated tools to audit all of that kind of stuff. You know, the tendency with this, both with disaster as well as hacking risks and so forth, those things tend to pop up. We find out about them when it's too late, right? When the event has already happened and the exploit has been taken advantage of and the files and information are lost. And so, because that's the case, one of our non-negotiable guys of your IT professional is that they must be providing you with inventory reports, risk assessment reports, cloud readiness, cybersecurity readiness reports. I mean, look, if you don't have the data, I always like to tell people I deal in facts. I don't like to deal in opinions. And everybody has those, right? But facts don't lie, and data doesn't lie. And knowing where you stand, knowing what your likelihood of a breach every single day is very important. So I want you to think about the last time you sat down in a proactive conversation with your IT professional. What data did they bring to the table? Were they able to show you what equipment is in place and how old it is? Is it in or out of warranty? Were they able to talk to you about emerging vulnerabilities or threats that have just come out or been introduced into the wild? And by the way, what we're doing about that as a business. And so because of that, guys, that's a non-negotiable item of your IT service provider support. And the last one, probably the obvious one, is the price or the cost. I mean, guys, the cost justification is the basis for every decision that we make in business. If we're going to hire someone and put them on the payroll, if we're going to cut a check to outside help or pay for consulting, or if we're going to outsource in a permanent capacity, the juice has to be worth the squeeze, right? And I'm just going to tell you something, guys. This is another area where us as business owners are sort of held over a barrel. Okay, it's not, if it's not bad enough that we're oftentimes held ransom, so to speak, by our IT guys and protecting the knowledge and kind of bunkering in our businesses. It's also in many cases really tough to know just exactly what are we paying for. I mean, think about it. If you're the type of person, maybe you've outsourced that support or you've paid a bill recently. Did you ever have that thought? What the heck am I paying for anyway? Or perhaps if you're getting help from somebody on the payroll, have you ever thought, just what the heck is that person doing all day? What am I getting for that exchange of payroll? And the truth of the matter is that in the IT services, IT space, it's very common that you get nickeled and dimed to death from a business perspective. Lots of little extras and additives. Maybe you've experienced this where you're constantly having to purchase new hardware or pay for the new software license or buy the next widget. And I'm just going to tell you guys, obviously, price, cost, that justification, that's important. You should never be left in the dark about where your investment in IT support is going, both in terms of the services and the help, but also the things that you're paying for that are coming into your business. So if you feel that way at all, maybe that's a question you should ask yourself. So as you're looking at this, ask yourself that question. Is the person or the entity that's helping me with all of these IT services, can they show me where my money is going? Money makes people funny. One of the worst feelings in the world is just not having a concept of what am I paying for? What is that person doing while they're on the clock? Or when I get an invoice, what the heck am I paying for? And by the way, why is it different every freaking month, right? And so looking at these guys, these are the 7 non-negotiables that in auditing your IT service provider, we have to check all of these boxes. They must grow and scale with our business. They must have an answer for all of our cybersecurity stuff, internet security stuff. They need to help us when we're down. They need to protect our important assets, give us the information, show us where the risks are, and most of all, make sure that we know that the return on our investment is there. Let's talk about the idea of a budget. What budget, right? As the slide says. And I'm just going to tell you guys something. In all of my years of going into businesses and helping calculate these things and auditing IT, there's always holes in the boat. And for most business owners, when we talk about the idea of a budget, I have to be candid. It's usually not totally all encompassing. Budgets oftentimes are fabricated from some resemblance of I know approximately what I spent last year to fix broken things, or when did the IT guy show up, or if I had to buy a computer or two. But there's lots of numbers that don't get baked in to give us an accurate picture really of what we should be setting aside to budget for our IT in our business. But not just that, guys. I promise you that in your business somewhere, you're leaking money. And it's probably coming in the form of putting out IT fires, having to have somebody in your business manage those phone calls to vendors or negotiate with the IT guy or waiting around for them to show up. And because that's true, guys, I want to set aside auditing your IT help for a moment, and instead I want to think about some of the hidden costs in your business, and give you a couple things to think about. So let's talk about the first one, maybe the obvious one, but of course, hardware, software are physical assets. If you're in business today, on some level, you're buying computers, you're buying laptops, you're buying servers, maybe you're paying for CRM software, a financial program. But the reality is, it takes a lot of stuff to go, right? Our humans need technology. They have to have a keyboard and mouse to sit in front of to exact email and do all the things that they do. And if you're like me, over time, you just lose track of that stuff, right? In your mind, you're thinking, gee, I'm always cutting checks for buying new stuff or fixing computers. And then time passes because you're focusing on your business, right? And that little beige box sitting off in the corner, maybe it still says e-machines on it with the little sticker that says never obsolete 1999. And you go, gee, wow, it has been a while since I installed that thing. And that to say, there's hidden costs when it comes to your asset management. What are the age of these systems? Are old and slow computers dragging us down? Are we frequently having to restart them? Are they becoming incompatible? Are they going out of warranty? When should I plan to rip and replace these things, replace the old dying aging systems so that my staff can remain productive? And it's a if you're like me, again, you probably feel like you're paying into that bucket, dealing with that hole in the boat quite often. Likewise is our monthly fixed cost. Okay, so guys, just aside from purchasing and owning things, we're also in sort of what I like to call the Netflix model, right? It used to be back in the day, you bought and owned everything. You'd go to probably a big box store and you'd buy a box of software, get a CD with a code on it. You owned it, and maybe your closet's full of all these boxes like mine is, right? And that was the way of things, but not so much anymore. This day and age, we're in this sort of pay for the right to use things, like paying for Netflix, right? And think about all the different costs there. You probably have a fixed cost for your email solution, domain or hosting, maybe your website, your Microsoft licenses, cloud software. It seems like there's a monthly or annual fee per seat, per site fee for every little thing. And it's very easy to lose track of these. If you think about it, maybe at some point in your life you've had an Amazon, Prime subscription, and you signed up on multiple accounts. Next thing you know, you're paying in two different places for free shipping, and it's just easy to lose track of these things, to be double paying, overpaying, or not simply knowing where are those costs going and how to keep track of it. So holes in the boat, if you're not aware of what those are, spending them up when you're needing them, turning them off when you don't, cutting them off when people come and go. They do tend to be relative to the number of people or the number of seats that you're filling, so to speak. But it's a cost that can get away from you if you're not paying attention to it. Likewise, here with monthly fixed cost, we also have security subscriptions. Again, it used to be that we could just, have an antivirus. We paid for a disk. It was $30 or whatever. And once a year, we updated it. We got a new license key, and we were off to the races. But no more. No, nowadays we have to think about endpoint protection. That's kind of our new fancy word for it. Desktop antivirus, email continuity solutions, as well as email backup, email archiving or encryption services. Maybe you have a firewall and that has a license and definition updates, dark web monitoring, ongoing cybersecurity training. I mean, the list goes on. And it's not always clear. Okay, it's not always clear. Are we keeping these expenses under wrap? We're paying for the things that are relevant and what's running away with itself. So beyond hardware, beyond software, fixed assets, monthly costs, all these different things. Well, guess what, guys? Beyond the technology, there's also human beings. Believe it or not, it does require humans to make technology go. And so I want you to also think about in your business, stop for a moment and visualize, who is the go-to person right now in your business when there's an IT challenge, printer's not printing, finance software's not doing what it's supposed to, emails can't go out, computers not doing what they need to do, maybe having to be restart. Who's the go-to person in your business that is the designated sort of de facto voluntold IT person? Heck, maybe it's you. And in thinking about that person, also think about, what is that person's actual job role? Are they paid to be the fixer of broken computers, or are they your office manager or your controller, your CFO, your president, your receptionist, right? They probably have some other duties that they were hired and are compensated to do. And frankly, let's face it, those duties have much more to do with creating revenue and serving your clients and protecting your bottom line than putting out IT fires. And for me, guys, what I often find is that person, they're doing the very best they can with what they have, but they're generally not an expert. They know enough to be dangerous, but oftentimes they get in over their head. And by the way, because they're humans, they have to sleep sometimes. They can't work 24 hours a day. They do get sick. They do like to go on vacation. They're not always in the office. They can't be in two places at once. And if you're running a business, let's say with multiple locations, or you're running 24 hours a day, you know what I'm talking about. When that person's not available, everybody suffers in terms of turn time and when they get their request help and so on. So in thinking about that, also think about this. What is the impact on your business if that person, again, maybe that's you, is getting pulled away from their primary job duties every single day, let's just say for an hour a day, to get on the phone with a vendor or deal with a fire or help somebody check a box because, again, the printer didn't print, or drive to, I don't know, the AT&T store because it's a mobile problem. I mean, guys, if you start doing the math on, if nothing else, the wasted payroll, the opportunity cost, maybe that person's now working 50 or 60 hours instead of 40 hours because they've got the IT hat on. Think about the effect on that person and what happens as a product of them not fulfilling that job role. Oftentimes we see communication breakdown, things get pushed to the next day, clients don't get served, office doesn't get ran properly. This can affect culture, it can affect morale, it certainly can affect the sanity of this individual. Okay, so in thinking about that, think about your internal personnel. Who's helping you now with IT challenges, and should they be? Likewise, the internal personnel, let's think about the people outside of our business. Maybe in this case it's an outsourced IT. Again, you have the option here. A lot of people do this. Maybe you do have somebody that can self-remediate, but think about the hard costs that you're paying for that firefighting help. When poor Mary, the office manager, gets in over her head and has to call for backup, what does that cost? Are you paying for ad hoc services, break fix services, for somebody to come in and put the fire out? Maybe you have a company on retainer, and they're helping you sometimes. They're doing a couple things proactive, but it's sort of a use it or lose it deal. Or maybe you're on some kind of support agreement, and you have a fixed cost associated with that. Also think, who are you paying for voice and data, telecom services? Maybe you have support agreements with your vendors, maybe your copy machine or some software application that requires maintenance windows for them to remote in and do stuff. Guys, if you really stop and think about it, you probably have a lot of costs that are going out of the business to facilitate that technology help, and probably that internal person. Again, another big hole in the boat if you're not tracking it. The last one here, guys, in terms of hidden cost, and if you've been through this, it's the big one, okay? Downtime. The mantra of every person is, I just want technology to work. I just want to get my job done. I don't want to wait on restarts and crash computers. And think about a time, maybe you've gone through a technology tragedy. Maybe you've had a server fail, or you've been ransomed, or you've had a website or an email account compromised, and it was full stop. And I mean, in turn, you cannot produce revenue, you cannot serve clients, you cannot create your widgets per hour. So you have the loss of incoming revenue, right, and therefore profit. But you also have the payroll that you're spending to have employees sit on their hands. If the production line is down, or we can't process payroll, we can't log into our CRM, and we have staff that's literally being paid to sit there because of a failure of technology. Do a math equation on that. If you think about what your business earns, break down your annual revenue, maybe take your annual revenue, take your annual payroll, and kind of do a quick calculation. If I had to put a number to it, full stop, lost an entire day's worth of revenue, had to pay an entire day's worth of payroll, what would that be costing my business? And for many folks, I'm just going to tell you, in many cases, guys, it's 4 or 5 or even sometimes 6 figures in terms of the hole in the boat. And so sometimes we talk about downtime. We talk about the idea of, hey, if we can just stop one day worth of downtime somewhere, one catastrophe, what's that worth to our business? And so, guys, think about what's on the screen here. There's lots of hidden cost in terms of managing what you have, what's being installed, the life cycle refreshing of that, the fixed costs that we're paying, the people we're bringing in to our business, but also putting an extra hat on their head, and also the costs associated with downtime. If you really think about it, there's a lot to this. Okay, guys, the third thing I want to talk about with you today is something that we call internet culture. And this, by the way, is part of the resources available to you. Again, on this page, we've created a pretty cool tool that goes along with some of this content. But what I want to share with you here is a statistic, first of all, and that is, in the typical small business, approximately 60% of all employees waste on average 2 hours per day goofing off on the internet, on the company time, and on the company dime. Now, this is something where we are, as business owners, we're losing twice. Because on the one hand, as you can see on the graphic here, if it's true in your business that 60% of people, so not quite 2/3 of your staff, are messing around on the internet and they're losing 2 hours of productivity per day, well, here's the dirty little secret about that. Depending on what they're doing and what they're looking at, chances are they're also hogging up a bunch of your internet bandwidth, okay? While that's happening, and I don't know, think about a time where your entire network ran slow, or you're trying to load QuickBooks and it wouldn't load, or get into your email and it wouldn't load, or you had to restart your computer, or you sent a print to the printer and it never came out. In many cases, the reason for that is that pipe that you pay for, that internet bandwidth, is being choked out. That network is being choked out and clogged up because you have a bunch of erroneous activity going on the network, and it's oftentimes these 60% of folks to blame. And so what's going on here, as you can see from my angry emojis, the 40% of people who are just trying to get their work done, or doing what they're supposed to do, who have a mind for productivity, Well, they're getting frustrated because their experience sitting at their keyboard or utilizing their technology is diminished as a direct byproduct of the people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Okay. So it cuts both ways. Now, so let's think about this for a minute. These folks who are wasting this time on the internet, they're doing stuff like this. They're on Facebook, social media, Instagram, TikTok. Now, I get it. As a business, you probably have a brand that you are trying to promote. You need that. You want that social proof that all of us as business owners want. We want when a prospect looks us up, they see our social media post or Taco Tuesdays, they want to know that there's a human being behind that website, behind that Facebook page. Okay. So don't get me wrong. There's probably somebody in your business that should be on Facebook and social media sites throughout the day on the company dime and on company time. But I think we can also agree that if the typical person who's there during the day, who's supposed to be getting their job done, maybe it's not the best that they're on their Facebook updating their status or looking at all their family's posts and commenting or showing what they had for lunch that day. I mean, guys, 2 hours a day becomes significant quickly. So I think we can agree that where it's appropriate, some folks need to utilize social media to drive our business forward, but having unabated access for everyone to goof off and not pay attention to their work desks is does not help the bottom line. Likewise, YouTube, streaming sites, Spotify, Pandora, same kind of situation. Perhaps you are a company where these type of sites make sense. I don't know, let's say you're running a repair shop and you need to research things, you need to look up parts or products and how-to videos. There's certainly applications at some point in the day or based on a job role that it makes sense to have access to these sites. But I also think that we can agree that if everybody on the clock just can simply sit around and watch videos and shorts and take away from their focus on the workday, again, not only are we gonna really mess with the internet bandwidth, but people are going to be doing that as opposed to accomplishing their tasks. Another one that's not often thought about, here's one for you: ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Monster.com, job recruiting sites. I think we can all agree that somebody in your company, the owner, HR manager, whoever deals with hiring, firing, probably needs access to these types of websites. But I think we can also agree that if we have a disgruntled employee, we shouldn't be paying them to look for their next gig on our dime and our time. All right. So the point to all this, guys, when it comes to internet culture, is we need to wrap our arms around this. I always say internet culture will happen by accident if you let it. And on the one hand, we have the productivity of our employees, but then also on the other, we have the sort of the morale and their sanity in the workplace. But it goes beyond this, my friends. So if we're looking at this, let's just say a common thing I hear, maybe you're thinking, well, Josh, hold on a second. If they're slowing down the internet, we'll just buy more bandwidth. We'll buy a bigger pipe. We'll call the internet company. We'll make it go faster. But as you can see by the graphic there on the screen, it makes the pie bigger, okay? But it doesn't scale. And we talked about scalability, right? Throwing money at the problem doesn't scale in this particular case. In fact, all it does is increase the room for these folks here that are watching those videos on YouTube. Well, now they're streaming in 4K. And if this goes on long enough, now some of those 40% of folks who were working, they're getting fed up and maybe they're going to join the dark side and do it too, right? So the implications run all over us, guys. So as you're looking at this, and by the way, this is just related to who should have access to what while they're on the internet, at the computer, at work, during work hours. But this doesn't even address some of those security concerns. What websites are they going to? There's some things on the internet that are just categorically bad. Gambling websites, pornography websites, there are hacking, cracking websites. There's just this sort of part of the internet that we know to be very dangerous, using it all and in the first place. Not to mention HR concerns, legal liabilities, all that fun stuff. So anyway, as you're looking at this, I want you to think about a math equation. Think about the number of employees that you have. Maybe you have 10, maybe you have 2, maybe you have 102. But think about the number of employees. And I want you to do a calculation in your mind. If it's really true that nearly 2/3 of them are wasting 2 hours a day, what does that come out to be in terms of payroll? And I'll give you a real easy way to calculate this. Take use 172. There's 172 working hours in the span of the month. And that's a calculation based on the typical workday, accounting for holidays, 40-hour work week, and so forth. But you'll get close, all right? But take your staff, divide by 172, take that cost, and you'll come up with a sort of per hour, kind of per employee cost. And now multiply that by those 60%. For most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, that's a really big number. And heck, even if we happen to be that company, because I know it's not you, right? You employ angels, me too. Maybe I'm half wrong. Maybe it's even only 10%. Even at 10% of your staff, folks, that kind of loss is very significant. And that's just in terms of the cost. Again, these folks are not focused on growing your company, they're not serving your clients, and they're negatively impacting their coworkers. So, in terms of internet culture, this is what we talk about, guys. Now, maybe you're thinking about this for the first time. Maybe you're sitting there going, holy cow, I know the one guy who's always on those sites. Maybe it's you. But, guys, one of the tools I'm providing you today is an internet culture policy. All right. Making a decision about who should have access to what while at work and what's appropriate and what's not. It seems like a lot, and there's implications all over, but we're going to make it easy on you today. On this landing page is a download for that tool, ready to use, just requires a little customization. So please don't miss the opportunity to get that. And in so thinking, by the way, let's think about taking this a step further. The impact of your business lacking in terms of an internet culture. I said a moment ago, again, internet culture will happen by accident if you let it. For me, I prefer to define it. So one of the things we're talking about here, guys, is a term we use called cyber loafing. Come on, let's get these employees back to work. It's really easy just to get distracted, get caught up in those tasks. And the reality is, if we can keep people being productive and serve our clients, client experience is better, the bottom line is better, morale is better, sales professionals hit quotas, our Google reviews go up, productive people help our business in so many different ways. And it will address any network slowdown. Again, in a business, there's so many choke points where technology can fail you. We can have slow computers, we can have slow printers, slow network, slow internet, slow Wi-Fi, slow. Tends to be honestly one of the most common things I hear in business situations. So this is part of that. Enacting a bandwidth conservation act as part of that internet culture, controlling who and when can have access, and making sure those resources are available to our productive employees. That's what's going to keep us profitable. That's what's going to keep our clients happy. Along with this are, of course, business security risk. As I mentioned a moment ago, there are just some sites, some content that are just categorically bad. And we know that there are some dark areas of the internet, if we are allowed to just wander off wherever we like, that those websites are out to get us. We know that hackers are trying to trick us. They're trying to con us into clicking the download button after the resource. And invariably what happens, oh, you got a virus. And now your computer's trashed and the network's trashed. And we have a full-blown security alert on our hands. As I said before, our people are truly the greatest risk to our business. We can install great antivirus and great firewalls. We could put in great data backup solutions. We can put all this hardware and software stuff in place. But the truth of the matter is, guys, it's the busy working professional that gets duped by these bad websites, by these hackers, by these malicious entities that trick us and cause all this downtime. So I don't know about you, and last but not least, but I don't want my business being the next one on the Sunday news. I don't know if you've ever had a situation where somebody on your staff is looking at explicit or illicit content. Yuck situation. In compromised situations, think in terms of email gets leaked that contains client information. For those of you all in the medical space, you're probably aware of a little thing called HIPAA, regulatory entities, etc. But this can also, guys, something as simple as just having an open door policy to internet usage can also open your business up to human resource and legal liability. So maybe you're sitting there thinking, hey, what would a big bad hacker ever want with little old me? I'm just a little old business doing my little old thing. I assure you, if you're thinking perhaps that maybe you're too small to have these challenges, that is not the case. It's not a matter of if you're going to have one of these incidents, but when, especially if you're not safeguarding against it. But you might just be too small to end up in the news, right? At any rate, guys, let's bring it all home. So based on some of this content, you've been on here half hour, 45 minutes with me. What is your next move? Well, I hope that I achieve my goal of educating you, creating some awareness around some things to think about, and also empowering you. So I want to invite you now. Click on the resources that are on this page. Download our excessive spend calculator. Have the resource to audit both your IT services, those non negotiables, what assets do you have, and also, by the way, where are the holes in the boat. It's one handy document. It's easy to navigate that you can use on your own, and also to our internet culture policy. Help begin that process of defining what's appropriate for your business based on your values. And by the way, guys, if you have any challenges with those resources whatsoever, any questions unanswered, or if it's just too overwhelming, please reach out to my team. We would be more than happy to walk you through these resources. We invite you for our no risk, no obligation consultation. I like to say that it doesn't cost very much, if anything, to know everything about what's going on in your business. So don't hesitate to reach out, have your people talk with my experts, utilize that excessive spend calculator, utilize that internet culture policy, and my friends, let's make our businesses more secure and more profitable. That's how we can help. I hope this has been an informative webinar for you. Make it a great day.